Welcome back, everybody, to Terror and Touchdowns. This is our second episode that will be more along the lines of touchdowns, as we are going to talk about the national championship game that's going to be played on Monday. Why are we doing it so many days before? Well, I get my sons this weekend. I pick up Logan tomorrow, and then we will have Hayden out here starting on Saturday night, I believe, and I won't take them back until late Monday. So if we're going to talk about the game, we're going to talk about it now, or we're not going to talk about it at all. Dependent on how my prize picks goes, I may start doing some daily prize picks on here as well, because I've been blessed enough lately to have a little bit of success. And if I keep having success, I would want to share success, absolutely. Been a little under the weather. I don't know why. I think it's because I cut my caffeine intake in more than half, and it has done a number on me. I'm a caffeine addict for many years, and we've kind of trimmed it down. And last night I was like, I do not understand why I am so tired. And then I was like, whoa, maybe that is why I am so tired. So anyway, trying to get our energy back. Trying our new platform here. So I went OSB so that I could do the video and upload to YouTube. And then I just had GarageBand going in the background. We're trying this with just Riverside. And we're going to see how Riverside works and if I can do both video and audio, which everything that my friend ChatGPT says I can. So we're going to try that. All right. Let's get into the national championship game that's played Monday night. First off, and I know I am just repeating what everybody else says, but they got to fix the calendar because it has been forever since these two teams played, and it was forever. I mean, Indiana had the bye. They've rested more than they've played since the end of the regular season, and I'm okay with it because, you know, those that have listened to me before know that I get really depressed when football ends. But when it comes to the quality of the game that's going to be played, I don't think you're getting the team's best when they've been able to rest. I don't know how long it will be, 10 days, 12 days. You know, I go back to the first round buys that Indiana, yes, they won, but if you go back in the history of the 2 years of this playoff, the first round bye has not been something that has really treated many of the teams well. And talking to my father was like, I don't think there's an advantage to the bye. Like, again, living close to Lubbock, I was sitting there thinking about Texas Tech. I would have rather been Oregon than Texas Tech. I would have rather had a game at home against James Madison, and nothing against James Madison, but they were outmatched, and I think everybody thought they were and were going to be. And, you know, Oregon played really well the first half, didn't play great the second half, but just speaking in ambiguous terms and not the specifics of that game, I think I would rather have a home playoff game against an opponent I know I'm 25, 30 points better than. Because to me, then, if you take care of your business, you get the best of both worlds. You get to play and not get too rusty. Yet at the same time, you get a little bit of rest because if you handle your business, everybody's getting some playing time. And I think it just makes you sharper for the next week. And I have no doubt that all of the teams that got a bye this year really researched what the teams that got a bye last year did during those weeks. But it really didn't pay off except for Indiana. And Indiana's just got an asterisk by them in every sense of the word. Like, they are, in my opinion, defying everything that college football currently is. I mean, Signetti, the transfer portal, Indiana just in general. I mean, think about that. And I was listening to Jeff Cameron this morning, and they were saying that, the viewership is expected to be down. Now, I think that's relative. There's going to be millions of people watch this game, but it is expected to be down. And I think that has to do with how long and drawn out it is. But they made the comment that we are witnessing one of the greatest sports stories in our lifetime. And I mean, that's hard to disagree with. I mean, my only knowledge of Indiana football prior to the last couple of years was Anton Randall L. Was that his name? And I believe he played quarterback for him. And I mean, that's all that I knew him for. And in the day and age of SEC dominance, of ESCC-PN, just pushing everything in their favor, in a day and age of the big money spending programs, getting the best athletes, how are they doing what they're doing? And I have picked against them and against them and against them, and not out of disrespect. I am just one that there's always these Cinderella stories like in the NCAA basketball tournament, but they always come to an end. They make the Sweet 16 and then they get blown out. But Indiana just gets better every single week. And I don't know, at this point, I think that the safest money is just to put it on them, because until they prove you wrong, they've done nothing to make it you believe they're going to. So, and then the Miami side of it, I'm partial because I'm a Florida State fan, but I'm going to do this podcast. I'm going to step out of my Florida State Seminole fan skin and talk about the game. I will tell you, I was as impressed with Miami against Ole Miss as I've ever been with Miami. I have been a Mario Cristobal critic, and not in the recruiting. He's out-recruited Norvell and Florida State to great ends. But in the end game, like I always joke with my dad and always tell him, if it gets close, don't worry, Cristobal he'll screw it up for him. I was dead middle of the living room, 2 years ago, whatever that was, when Georgia Tech just nil on the ball and the game is over. And I think there's probably not been as many examples of that as my mind wants to think there is, but just that alone, like that put some damage in my brain as far as how good of a coach he is. I just, even as I think about it right now, cannot comprehend what he was thinking. All that being said, the way that he's carried himself during this playoff has impressed me. The way that they played has impressed me. I said this in the first Terran touchdowns that I did. I said when Miami got in, again, I'll reference my father a lot during this podcast, I wouldn't want to play them because they have as much talent as anybody out there. I don't think it should have been a question. To repeat what I said during my last podcast, I think the wrong conversation was being had. I don't think the conversation should have ever been Miami or Notre Dame. I think both of them should have been in and Alabama not. Now, I mean, Alabama goes and beats Oklahoma, but the gist of it is, and I am anti-pro SEC. I am not anti-SEC. I'll watch the SEC games as much as the next guy. I am anti the special privileges, the special treatment that no one can, like, you're going to lose that argument with me if you want to argue with me that the SEC has not gotten treated with privilege. That being said, I don't have anything against the teams. It's more with their commissioner, and just it's really more with the powers in control of college football that continue to just treat them like they do more and are better than everybody else. I say all that to say I just don't think a 3-loss team, when you have Miami and Notre Dame both sitting there, I don't think the conversation should have ever been the 3-loss SEC team has to be in and one of these has to be out. I think both of them should have been in. I don't know that I think that means Notre Dame would be whatever side of the bracket they got put in. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying I never thought the right conversation was being had. That goes back to the initial statement. I wouldn't have wanted to play Miami. I did not think they would win their first round game, but they did. And they looked good doing it. And they have looked confident, and they have looked well coached. And that is the biggest surprise for me. Defensively, I think they've been well coached all year. I think Carson Beck has been up and down. We got to remember who he is. I mean, he is a guy that if anybody on the field on Monday night is used to this kind of atmosphere, it should be Carson Beck. And there's been times he looked the part, but there was some dips midseason where he didn't. And, but I'll tie it all back to Cristobal has just had a way to screw things up for him. And to his credit, he hasn't. And I read a lot of people talking about how much they couldn't stand him after the interviews. I was watching the whole thing when he got up after the last victory against Ole Miss, which was the best of those two games. But when he was up on the stage and, just the way he acts, like he says out loud what the rest of us think. And I'm cool with that. So, and I've always kind of looked at him not really knowing his personality and kind of wondered what is it about him that it allows him to recruit, which again, because I didn't think a lot of, he made me give more credit to the assistants underneath him. But yeah, I can kind of see it a little bit. My guess is he keeps it really real and doesn't really care if you like it or not. And I don't know that that's what all college football coaches do. So Cristobal's gained a little bit of my respect. I'm still pulling for Indiana. I can never pull for Miami. That does not mean I don't like to watch Miami play. And I think they did a fantastic job. Opening up last week, I was real curious with Ole Miss's coaching uncertainty, how that game was going to play out. And Miami, I was telling my dad, it should never have been as close as it was. It was hands down, Miami was the better team. But again, Miami, unlike what Indiana has shown, Miami will let you hang around. And I didn't think you needed to let Ole Miss hang around. I didn't watch Ole Miss much this year, but I saw enough of Trinidad Chambliss in these last few games to know you don't need to let him still be close late in the game. And Miami, but it wasn't ever because of necessary stupidity. They just made some plays to get ahead and then wouldn't make some plays that they had been making to kind of build that lead. And so Ole Miss was able to stay in there. But I was really impressed with their plan because anybody who's watched them at all, like if that was the first time you've seen Miami and you think, well, who is this Malachi Toney guy? Well, if you're in the ACC, you've known about Malachi Toney all year long. And, Malachi Toney, like if you go back and look at his games, there are games where he has huge output. There's games where he doesn't do a whole lot. But I was impressed because they were going to get him the football. They were going to get him the football, and they did a fantastic job of doing it. So props to Miami. Indiana, on the other hand, I'm not going to lie. I thought Oregon could play with them. I'm a Dan Lanning fan. But Indiana just continues to do what they do. And I didn't pick them to win. I am one of those guys. I picked Alabama over them, which goes hypocritical and contradictory to what I said earlier. But I just keep thinking the Indiana bus is going to stall out, but it doesn't. And man, they pick six on play one. And I know that the quarterback, the Heisman Trophy winner, gets a lot of flack. I've read a lot of stuff about how he's nowhere near as good as I mean, every pass he threw, they made some unbelievable catches, but it wasn't like catches that they had to stretch real high or jump real far or dive for. I mean, the balls are right where they need to be. The catches came because Miami's coverage was, I'm sorry, not Miami, but the coverage of Oregon was on point. And like I had to check the box score mid-third quarter to see, man, have these guys thrown an incompletion? And I think they had thrown one at the time. They got two running backs, the Hemby kid and the Kalen Black kid. Both of them are, you know, I think Hemby was the go-to guy for the majority of the year. But from what, again, I didn't watch a ton of Indiana. I probably only watched the big games during the year. But in the playoff, Kalen Black has been every bit as efficient as Hemby. But, you know, the other night I thought I could see now, I was like, okay, now I kind of see why Hemby's been y'all's go-to guy, because he does a lot of really good things, but both of them are solid. And then just defensively, goodness gracious. I mean, and I've been reading about how people think they're cheating because there's no way they're that good. And I just think, I think there is a way. I think they are extraordinarily well coached, and I think they are extraordinarily well prepared. I think they are extraordinarily bought in and disciplined. And man, those kids know what they're supposed to do on every snap, and they do it. So I've just been more and more and more impressed with Indiana as it goes. And am I impressed with Miami? I'm not surprised with Miami. Let's put it like that. But I have been impressed with them. So, you know, going into Monday night, I believe Indiana's favored by 8.5-ish points. And I have been listening to a lot of podcasts that are taking Miami. A lot of people mention the home field. I don't think that has anything to do with it. If again, us ACC watchers understand that there's not a lot of people that go to the Miami home games anyway. I don't think that, and this to me, the college football championship has become way more like the Super Bowl, in the sense that like only the diehard fans that also are the diehard fans that have an extraordinarily amount of excess cash are able to attend this. Like, I've looked at the ticket prices just for kicks, and like, it's ridiculous. Like, I always ask myself, if Florida State was playing, would I go? And I would sure try to, but even I don't know that I'd be able to shell out $3,000. Like, that's crazy. And I read today that each school gets 12,000 tickets, but even the 12,000 that Miami's given out, like, I don't think we're going to see a raucous student body from Miami there. I say all that to say I don't think the fact that they're playing in Miami matters a bit. Other than the travel, other than it probably eases up on their preparation. Their families are probably going to get to come see them at the hotel, but I doubt many of their families are going to be able to afford to go unless they do something with the team's families that I am unaware of. Indiana has shown that they'll travel. So honestly, I would expect there to be every bit as many Indiana fans as Miami fans. But I guess my biggest fear is that there's just going to be more rich college football fans there than anyone. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I just mean that it kind of takes away the vibe, the climate. Like, to me, that's what's always made college football special. Like, and I've referenced the Super Bowl. Like, rarely do you watch the Super Bowl and a team have a home field advantage. That, to me, is what we'll see. I think we'll see more Indiana colors across the stadium than we will Miami. But I think that hurts just the product, in the sense of when the ticket is so expensive that it really limits the amount of true fans that are able to go. Then it just becomes the Coliseum with a bunch of, with the gladiators going at it with a bunch of people that have no investment in really who wins the game. They just are fortunate enough to be able to afford to go. So the 8.5 line, I'd factor home field advantage into it. Zilch, zero. I don't think it matters a bit. I would I would put Indiana. Sorry, even though I'm retired, I still get 1,000 texts a day with work. So even though, like, I'm having to ask myself with the 8.5, who would I go with? Would I go with Indiana? Like, I would if it was just an outright pick. I'm going Indiana. With the 8.5, I might be tempted to go Miami, but this ain't that podcast. I hope you didn't tune in. If you tuned in for that, I'll do more player props. I won't pick head to head. I think Miami has a chance to make it a close game, but in order to do so, they are not going to be able to make some of the mistakes that they have made sometimes. Even referencing the Ole Miss game, they would play so good. And if you could hide the little score ticker on your TV and just watch the game, you would think they're ahead 3 touchdowns. And you look up and they're trailing in the fourth quarter. I don't think you can do that with Indiana. I think if you've got a chance to get a 2-touchdown lead, you dang sure better get a 2-touchdown lead. And then you dang sure better play as good as you can to secure that 2-touchdown lead. Because where I think they differ is Indiana has not shown to make the mistakes that allow other teams to stay in the game as Miami has, even though they've been able to win the games. And I honestly say that with respect for Miami because they've done that, in my opinion, and they're still playing Monday night in the national championship game. So kudos to those guys. So head-to-head, I'm going Indiana. I'm not going to lie, like sitting here today, I think a lot of it is my optimism and hope that we're going to get to see a really good football game. I would take Miami with the points. But again, that is my hope. I don't want to see a killing. I did not enjoy watching the Indiana-Oregon game. I enjoyed watching the Miami-Ole Miss game way more. So I would much rather watch that kind of game in the national championship than a killing. So, yeah, I think I think Indiana's going to win the game, but I can see a world where Miami keeps it close. I think Carson Beck will play fine. He ain't going to get nervous. That dude's been in the championship talk since he got to college. I read the other day where he was a college freshman and Malachi Tony was 11 years old. That is an insane referendum on where we are with college football today. I bet Malachi Tony was a really good 11-year-old football player. I'll say that. I've looked at some of the player props, some of the ones that I've taken so far. I have Malachi Tony over. The last time I looked, it was 5.5 receptions. I have him over that because I do think Indiana's going to do a lot to take him away. But I thought Miami did a fantastic job of just doing the stuff that is easy. The screens. That last touchdown, that was nothing more than a quick screen that every Texas high school football team in America runs 100 times. And you're just saying my athlete's going to be better than your athletes. And you don't win every time, but he won that time. But I got to believe that Malachi Tony is going to get more than 5.5 receptions in that game. If he doesn't, they don't win, in my opinion. I've been afraid to take the yardage for Fletcher. I don't remember what it is. I think it's up around 70. I think he is a tough physical runner. All respect to him. But I don't know that Indiana's going to let him. How does Indiana approach this game? In my opinion, they stop the run and they take away Malachi Tony. Let me rephrase that. They stop Fletcher and the other running backs, and you take away Malachi Tony. Now, the other night, there were some receivers not named Malachi Tony that made some big plays, and they forced Carson Beck to beat them. But I also remember several that Carson Beck and the receivers left out there. And I don't know if it was, there was one early that he missed down the seam. There's one that he massively underthrew. And I said a while ago, I don't think Carson Beck's going to be nervous, and I don't. But I still think you got to make him beat you. And if he beats me, he beats me. But you cannot, if you let Fletcher and the other running backs just do whatever they want and you try to take away the whole passing game, well, I don't think Miami's going to ever have to throw the football, because I do think if they could pick the way they want to win, it's to pound you into utter oblivion and then throw the little quick stuff when they have to. And then when you come up to stop the run, that's when they're going to try to hit it over the top. So if I am Indiana, I'm shutting that run down. And I'm going to make you, I'm going to make sure I know where Malachi Tony is at all times. I don't know that I'm going to double him or anything like that, but I'm going to make sure I know where he is at all times. Indiana's shown they're going to be very well coached as far as what formations kind of mean what. And yeah, Miami's going to have some new stuff out there, but I'm going to know the formations that historically show that they may just raise up and throw Tony the quick string, but he ain't going to beat me over the top. None of them going to beat me over the top. And I thought that's where Ole Miss kind of messed up. And there was a couple times when they would show the end zone all 22, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And you know, it was just one kid trying to make a play and losing thought of what their responsibility is. And you know, I think it happened, and it could have been Tony, it could have been that other, I think it was one of the other Miami receivers. They had both of them. I think they had 3 receivers to one side. One of them cleared, and then that inside receiver ran a shallow post, and the other one kind of ran a real skinny one on top of it, and that safety came down and covered this, but this one already had a linebacker dropping underneath it, and they just let that guy run smooth down the seam. Like, that can't happen, and I don't think that will happen with Indiana. I'm going to stop the run, and I'm going to know where Tony is, and when you throw it to him short, we're going to be good tacklers. And if Indiana does that, I don't see how they can lose the game. On the other side of that, if I'm Miami, it's pretty much the exact same thing. I'm not going to let Hemby and Black win the game. You got a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback over there. He's going to have to prove to me that he deserved that trophy. And he's going to have to hit the stuff that he hasn't had to hit. I think he threw like 15 passes, or he may have completed. I think at one point, I know when I checked it, when I wondered if they had an incomplete, when I checked it, he was, I think, 14 out of 15 or 15 out of 16. You know, that ball did not hit the ground very much. And I would make him, man, if I'm going to lose that game, it's going to be because that Heisman Trophy quarterback deserves that Heisman Trophy, and not because you got 2 running backs that were able to just dominate the line of scrimmage. It's going to be a fun game. Other player props, let me look and see what other player props I currently have taken. I watch them kind of further out because sometimes you get some good lines. I know everybody understands that, but sometimes you get some lines early because I kind of adjust, later on. I got to quit. If you're on Prize Picks, if you ever seen how you can bet on like the video game stuff that I know nothing about, I gotta quit doing that. I never win. I don't know why I do that. I don't have much right now. I'm a very disciplined Prize Picks player. I'm not ever going to go over the top. But on the quarterbacks, I got Beck going over 199, and I got Mendoza under 215. That's pass yards. And I will say this, if I'm right, I think Miami's got a shot to win the game. But if I'm also right, that means that my prediction was right. Because that means Beck's having to throw it, and that means Mendoza's not. So I kind of picked that in conjunction with how I think the game is going to play out. I told you earlier I've got Tony over 5.5 receptions, and then I have Charlie Becker over 45.5 yards. Because that guy made some of the most ridiculous catches in the world the other night, and I just refuse to believe he's not going to have the opportunities to do that again. I think that's all I have right now, and I'll keep watching it. I'll place a few more day of. No, here's one more that I put in today. I've got Elijah Surratt, is that how you say his name? Under 57.5 yards. I've got Joshua Moore over 4.5 receiving yards because I just think Indiana is going to do such a good job on Tony. If they're going to get Tony the ball, they're going to have to hit some other guys to make them make Indiana know we ain't scared to throw it elsewhere. So I wanted to pick one that has a history of catching a few balls a game, but his yards ain't like way out there that he's going to have to catch 2 or 3. Like I tried to find one. He's got to catch one ball, in my opinion, to get that. And then I've got Omar Cooper under 45.5 yards. I think by my picks, you can tell that I think Indiana's going to win the game. And I think Indiana's going to win the game by being able to do what they want to do. They're not going to have to throw it a lot, so I got the receivers under. That's why I got Mendoza under. I haven't taken anything really on the running backs yet because I haven't felt good about where those lines are. But I think by my picks, you can tell that it backs up what I'm saying on this. So that's it for this episode. I'm excited about watching the game. There's a history in my family of getting Wingstop for the national championship that goes back since I knew of Wingstop being in existence. I don't get to do it as much anymore because I live an hour away from the closest Wingstop. But my youngest son, Logan, and I am, as you should know if you've watched any of these, a divorced dad, and my sons live in Lubbock, but they're going to be with me until a few hours before the game. And he, over the last few years, has made sure that at his home with his mom, that they have Wingstop for the national championship so he can continue to carry on the tradition. So I won't get to have it, but I will get to order it through the app and pay for it so that my younger son and my older son, Hayden probably won't watch a lick of the game, but he might eat some wings so that they can have Wingstop for the national championship. Last college football game of the year, fastest season in all of sports. It feels like it was just starting. At least we have the rest of the NFL playoffs, which for the most part, wild card weekend was amazing until the end of it. I haven't really looked at the matchups this week to start figuring out who I think is going to win. I won't ever. The extent that I talk about anything outside of college football on this will probably be for big things like Super Bowls or championships, and then for prize pick bets. If I continue to be successful on that, I will want to share with y'all. But this is it for college football, and I can't wait until the transfer portal is done so we can kind of figure out who our teams are. Not just my Florida State guys. That it's just, a few days ago, I wasn't even sure we'd be able to fill the team. But we're going to be able to fill the team, and we're going to have guys that we can get behind. But just all teams, I think we're all excited to know who's leaving, who's staying, so we can start figuring out, really thinking about, what our teams are going to look like next year. And then before you know it, they'll be at spring practices. And then before you know it, they'll be, I guess spring games still exist to an extent. I think it's slowly going to go away, but the ones that have them will still be televised. And then it'll be summer. And then EA will be coming out with their new game. And then the next thing you know, it'll be rocking and rolling. The last thing I'll talk about is the playoff, because I've heard that they are going to go up to 16 teams. I'll be honest with you. I don't even know who's making the decisions for college football right now. It's not the NCAA. And I don't think, maybe the College Football Playoff Committee, the people that sat in that room at the Gaylord Hotel that picked the teams, maybe they're the ones that would get to say, yes, we're making it bigger or smaller. I don't really know how I feel about it all. I know I would not want to buy. If I made the playoffs, I would not want to buy. I know I don't want the regular season to not matter. I know I am still one of those people that likes to watch all the bowl games. So I don't really know. The one thing I would say is that there's got to be an effort and a conversation from people who really care about the product and care about what college football is supposed to be. And if you've listened to me before, I ain't mad at these players that are coming and going. I think we'd all be doing the same. And those of us who say we wouldn't be are not being honest. I was listening to Jeff Cameron just a while ago on my walk, and he made the analogy of, if I am working and you are working for the same company and you are bringing in a ton more money than I am, then you're going to go to the boss and be like, what gives? Ritchie should not be making as much as I am, or you got to pay me more. Like, that's human nature. I do agree these contracts have to matter. Like right now, it's like they just don't matter. I don't know the answer, but I know that the answer can't be this fragmented version of what we have right now where no one really knows who's in charge. And figure it out. Get a calendar that benefits everybody. You know, the people that are rewarded by continuing to get to play in the college football playoff all the way to January, whatever, 19th, shouldn't also be being penalized because they're not able to put their full attention on the people in the transfer portal. I just think we're making, like I say this a lot, adults have a tendency to make things harder than they have to be. I think we're just making it harder than it has to be. Get in a room, look at the calendar, figure out how many teams you want, and figure out how to take those teams and still make the regular season matter, and then go from there. And then figure out the last thing is, you know, within those conversations, you got to figure out how you're picking the teams, because we can't continue to pick teams in a world where because I am in the SEC, I have a better chance to get in than someone that is equally as good and their on-field results are better or equal. Would they get 5 teams in this year into a 12-team playoff, almost 50% of the field? And if it's a year where they're hands down the best, great. I just don't think that's been the case for a while, even though people would argue with me. I often will tell you, like when you look up at the end of bowl season, and I know bowl season's diluted more than it used to be, rarely has the SEC been undefeated in bowl season. Everybody plays them better than what the rest of the world thinks they're going to, because everybody just gets fed this SEC propaganda all year. And if you don't watch it closely, you buy into it. And I just don't live in that world. I think Texas Tech deserved to be in. I think they're going to be good again next year. But that doesn't mean I don't think Texas is going to be good. I don't think OU was very good. You know, I don't think Alabama with 3 losses should have got in. I think Notre Dame should have. And I don't like Notre Dame, but I think they should have been in the playoffs. I always thought Miami should be in the playoffs. I'm not against the Tulanes and the James Madisons, and I know that was a lot of people's answers, is just take them out. I mean, you take them out. I mean, I don't know how long the NCAA men's basketball tournament was in existence before one of those really lower seeds finally beat a higher seed, but it's going to happen. And the more teams you add, the better chance you have of that happening, in my opinion, because those teams are not going to be playing the ones that just they have no shot against. So, you know, I don't know. I know that there's a lot of models out there. We've come a long way from the traditional bowls that I grew up. I grew up in the world where I never thought there would be a playoff, because I never thought they would be willing to do away with the bowl system that makes them so much money. And you know, now that I think they figured out the playoff will make equally, if not more, money. I don't know that there's an answer that checks all the boxes, but I do know that there's an answer that checks more boxes than is getting checked right now. And the first step, in my opinion, is to get the right people in the room. And I don't know who those people are, but it's not the head of ESPN, and it's not a lot of people that only watch games when they have to. And I mean, it's a lot of people that live the life, that understand the grind, that wants what's best for college football. And if they'll do that, they'll come up with a product that, but let's be real, if it doesn't change a lick, I'm still watching, and I'm sure most of you guys are too. All right, this was my first Riverside podcast, so now we're going to see how easy it is to do all the other stuff. So Riverside, I'm either about to give you a good review or a bad review. But thank you guys for tuning in to Terror and Touchdowns. This was obviously an episode on touchdowns. But with college football coming to an end, our episodes will probably lean way more towards the terror for a little bit. But we'll always work in some college football. Have fun watching the game Monday night. If I do another one before then, it will be a Prize Picks one. So if you don't see me again, enjoy the game, and we'll see you afterwards to talk about who won.